But yeah, so a minute and a half to just give a little intro about ourselves and our opinions on the prevalence of racism in America. If you would like to go first, feel free.
Sure. Just obviously, racism is a huge problem. We see it ourselves. Other people experience it, and obviously, that's not good. When it comes to like organizations called Black Lives Matter, I'm against that. But like Black Lives itself do matter. I just don't like the organization because like I'm Jewish. They're pretty anti-Semitic. They support anti-Semitic bills like BDS and stuff. Um, they also like they're responsible for like all these like riots on the streets. I know people like saying that it's peaceful protests, but yes, there are many peaceful protests, and I get that. I just don't like the part where it turns violent or anything like that, and I think it puts a bad image on it. I feel like it's important to focus on all Black Lives Matter, not just the Black lives that suit their agenda through like police brutality, because there's only so many Black people who die to police violence every year, and we can talk about like black on black crime, like in cities and stuff, which is a lot more important. Well, I don't really know what else to say right now, but we can start on that.
All right. So now I'll give my little intro without addressing anything that you said. So I'm actually pretty happy. I thought you would be a little more conservative and be like, oh, racism doesn't really exist in America anymore. So this is going to
Um,
be a more pleasant debate in that case. Yeah, so racism in America definitely exists still and affects people's lives, and that's pretty indisputable. And I do have a document up with just a whole ton of sources that give different examples of systemic racism in society. But yeah, just to give a little preface to what I'm going to be talking about, there are three types of racism. There is one, explicit racism, which is literally just when someone says, like, I hate black people or I hate Jews or whatever, or is very outwardly actually racist. So that's not as prevalent in America as it used to be, obviously. And, that's not legal. So that's not as much of a problem. But the two places where racism is actually a problem in modern day America are implicit racism and racism by outcome. So, implicit racism is when people have implicit biases that, they may not actually think consciously, oh, I hate black people or anything like that, but they're conditioned by society to look at a black person and just to feel more threatened on average than if it were a white person. And this can affect things like sentencing and the conviction rates in the judicial system. So if a jury is made up by these people who aren't explicitly racist but do have implicit biases, then they may be more likely to convict black people simply because of their appearance, instead of purely logically looking at their crimes. And then racism by outcome is when, even though there are no laws encoding racism anymore in America, we still feel the effects of racism from 50 years ago and from 100 years ago. Because when you're born into a family with little wealth, you are more likely to die with little wealth. It's more difficult to become rich if you're a lower class person in poverty. We have sticky ends of the wealth spectrum. If you're born poor or if you're born rich, you're more likely to die poor or rich. Um, and America ranks pretty poorly compared to other countries in terms of wealth mobility. So even though there are no laws currently encoding racism in America, there are still people who are feeling the effects of the racist laws that did exist 50 years ago. And I believe the solution to that would be reparations, and which I imagine that you would disagree with. So if you'd like to talk about reparations, that's the first thing we can talk about.
oh yeah, reparations. You said you were
hmm
cutting out. Yeah. So do you feel like that's the answer?
I don't think there's one single answer. I think there are a lot of small things that we can do, or some of them big things that we can do to address racism in America. But one step that I do believe is crucial is, yes, reparations.
You're cutting in and out, but I
I'm
understand
sorry.
what you're saying. But
Okay.
like reparation is in like straight up giving money to like black people, or reparation as in like
Yes. I think that
okay,
the government should straight up give like a check to black people for a certain number of months for or a certain number of years and have that supplement their income. It would be like a universal basic income but specifically for black people. And I do also just believe in a universal basic income
okay,
for
that's
everyone.
like, but you understand not all black people are poor. I think it should be on socioeconomic status if we are giving reparations, if we are handing out money.
Well, the problem with just having it instead be for uh, people who are in socioeconomic circumstances, they're more poor. I definitely also believe in that. I believe in a strong social net, but the problem is that there's way less average wealth in black families and black communities than white communities. I don't remember the exact percentage, but I can look it up if you'd like. But I believe it's something along the lines of 1/10. Like black people in America per capita have 1/10 of the wealth of white people. And
Okay, do you sorry, I'm getting notifications on my laptop. I
no,
have
it's
to turn
fine.
it off. Wait, I'm just gonna do that real quick. It's gonna be loud.
Hmm. No worries. But yeah, so because of that
All right, I
fact,
think
I
I
think it
turned it
just
off.
statistically makes sense to give black people a certain additional sum in the same way that it just makes sense for insurance companies to charge extra for boys who are learning how to drive because men are just more likely to be in car accidents. So a 16-year-old boy who's learning how to drive, the insurance is going to cost a little extra, So in the same way, you can argue that that's unfair, but I think it just makes sense statistically. It's a smart allocation of government resources.
Well, it should be going to the people who need it, not the people by color. Like, you
Well,
know what I'm saying exactly? Because um, people who are poor and who do happen to be black, they can get reparations. But if they're wealthy, they don't need it. Why are we like
well,
spending money on them when
the
they don't need it?
because the problem with drawing a line like a wealth line is then uh, when inflation happens, it makes it more difficult unless you're adjusting for inflation. And even if you are adjusting for inflation, who are the people who get to decide how much you're adjusting every year or every 4 years? And it's leaving it too much up to chance. I feel like because then you're
It's
leaving the
not leaving it
chance.
up to chance because as you said, if they start off wealthy, they're probably end wealthy, and the same thing for being poor. If they start off poor, they'll probably end off poor.
Right, but you have to draw a line somewhere. So like, are we going to draw the line at the poverty line? Because that's a pretty bad line to draw. The poverty line, $20,000, I believe in America right now, is absurdly low. It is very difficult to live off of $25,000 a year in most parts of the country. Um, but the
I
poverty
just
line is
don't think it's right
20,000,
to give it
so
to all black people. I think it should be socioeconomic, and that's all I'm saying.
okay.
It shouldn't. There's people who aren't black that are still poor. Could
Yeah,
be
and
other
those people should
minorities. It could
also
be
be
white
receiving
people.
a universal basic income or, uh, social welfare, in some form or another. I
What I
believe in
think
a
is
strong
really
welfare
important
state.
is like the bail system, like prison system. The bail shouldn't really be a thing.
Oh
Wealthier
yeah.
people. Yeah, I think we could agree on that.
Yeah, bail is terrible.
Obviously, education plays a huge role with that implicit and explicit racism and stuff.
hmm
Um, and then like the bail system is like systematic racism.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the bail system absolutely is a pretty easy thing that we can get rid of. Like that wouldn't be a difficult thing to get rid of. Um, and I do very strongly believe that if we pressure Joe Biden and establishment Democrats on that, that's something the Democrats would be willing to cave on. And that's also one of the reasons why, yeah, I voted for Joe Biden. So, it,
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it,
hmm and I
but at the
guess,
same time, then like isn't aren't don't Democrats like take the position that like the overcrowding of jails or whatever? So like if people aren't getting bailed out, what's their next solution? What's their solution? Just releasing them? Or you
Um,
wouldn't know.
yeah, if you get rid of bail, then those people are just released. Oh, are you saying get rid of bail,
You're
but just
cutting
like have it?
out.
Sorry. Better now? Wait, let me. I can like switch Wi-Fi's. Here, let me. I really hope this doesn't kill my stream. Uh, all right. Uh, okay. Is my stream still going? Error, YouTube. Oh, yeah, it's still going. Okay, good. Um, or at least I think it is. Yeah, okay.
You're good.
There's. All
Yeah.
right, wonderful. Hopefully this Wi-Fi works a little better.
Okay.
Um, all right, so you think we should get rid of bail and just have everyone stay in jail for that period of time?
Well, I don't know what the solution would be. I'm just saying that the bill system is unfair.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not a policymaker. I don't have to worry about that.
yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I definitely think that the logical next step to getting rid of bail would then be to have it legal for people to walk free during that period of time. I think
Well,
that
I would
definitely
think
makes the most
on
sense.
not obviously not violent charges, right?
Yeah, not violent charges. Like murderers and rapists still need to be held in jail.
Obviously, yes. Okay.
But like for all non-violent crimes, yeah, those people should just be allowed to walk free. And if I don't know,
But
do
they
you want to see
I think they would
statistics?
either have to if they have charges against them, they would still have to pay it. But that's like a different issue.
Well,
Like they can
yeah, if they get
get
fined, that's a
everything.
different matter. Um,
Okay.
Now I definitely believe that court fines and like traffic fines and all that are too high in America, and that the
Yeah,
government should be
it's
the government should be more lenient, especially with people in worse socioeconomic circumstances, getting smaller fines. You know, the fine shouldn't be like a blanket fine for um, for like parking in a handicap spot or like stuff like that. That shouldn't be a universal fine. It should be like a percentage of your income, if anything.
hmm
Uh, so yeah. All right. Well,
we can
I'm
kind of
surprised
agree
by
on
how
that.
much.
Like,
Hmm?
we can kind of agree on that. I mean, I'm conservative, like
Hmm.
in the fact that I'm a Republican. So
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. I'm surprised that we agree on this much pleasantly. All right, let's talk about Black Lives Matter though, because you said
sure.
in your intro that you're against Black Lives Matter, and
The organization, yeah,
right, right.
just to be clear.
Yeah, the organization. And that is something that I feel like I might be able to change your mind about on this stream, if judging by your answers to previous questions. Um,
hmm
so obviously, I denounce violence on the part of Black Lives Matter rioters, the people who are like breaking into small businesses and stealing stuff, stealing like designer jackets or stealing, especially from small businesses. That's really disgusting.
Yeah,
But that is a tiny fraction of the people who were protesting for Black Lives Matter. Um, the vast
uh,
majority of the people were peaceful protesters. And even
right,
though I definitely denounce the violence, it's understandable. It's not good, and people shouldn't be violent when they're protesting these things overall. But it's definitely understandable. There was a really powerful video I watched that was talking about this, about how it's pretty annoying how a lot of people just have no empathy for some of these people who are being more violent and destroying police cars, for example, during riots and stuff. Where it's like, so you're going to subject an entire group of people to systemic racism
Black
for
Lives Matter itself doesn't denounce the violence,
um,
do
I
they?
mean, I'm sure portions of Black Lives Matter do, maybe like their leadership doesn't. But
Okay, well, that's my issue.
I mean, the vast Black Lives Matter more than anything is like a group of people that are working towards a common goal, and they have some amount of, they have leadership to some extent. I don't know what the name of the guy who leads Black Lives Matter is or anything. I don't know how they're structured. I think it's also a little more decentralized, where there's Black Lives Matter for different cities, where like Different cities will have their own like factions of the organization. And
But like,
so you can say that like the Black Lives Matter organizers from one city may not denounce the violence. I'm sure you can't say that across the board.
more than just violence though, like they block traffic, make sure people can't get to the places.
Yeah,
They yell at people dining out at outdoor restaurants.
right.
Um,
That one
I
video
know
was pretty
there's
annoying.
more than just one video of that, but yeah,
hmm
in that
Um,
one situation.
I mean, yeah, the at least the one video that I've seen of the protesters like getting all up in the business of the people who were dining, the people who were dining, the couple, like were flipping off the protesters and stuff beforehand, which is something that a lot of the mainstream media was not really showing. So I'm not sure that they deserved what they got, but they definitely instigated it.
Yeah, that's
They
just
they were
one
not just like
example.
sitting there innocently and the protesters
There
came
is a
by.
whole compilation I can send you like after this.
Okay,
But
but
after,
there's
yeah,
usually context for those situations. And once again, these protesters are, yeah, they're trying to make life inconvenient. That's kind of the point of a protest is to raise a big fuss and get
do
people to
you think like
notice
they
and
get people on their side by shouting at them when they're eating?
well, the point of arguing with someone isn't always to get them on your side. It's to get the people
Well, that's
watching
what
on
they're
their
trying to
side.
do. They're
Well,
yelling at them to like put their fist up or join them in the march or whatever.
yeah, so a lot of the time it's people who
That's
are
their
acting
purpose.
out of anger and, aren't being super smart about it. And yeah, especially optics wise, it's not always great. But just to make the point that when you're like screaming at someone for being a Nazi, you're not trying to convince that Nazi to stop being a Nazi. You're trying to convince the people who are watching you scream at the Nazi that the Nazi is an idiot and that you shouldn't be like him. That's so saying that like oh, by screaming at the people in the streets, how are they supposed to change their minds? Well, that's not really the point. Um,
That is their point. That's what they said in that Inside Edition video. That their point in doing this to these outdoor diners was to get them on their side, to raise their fists, join them, or whatever, and put down their food to uh, be like to fight with them or something. That they said it themselves, the protesters, that that was their purpose.
I mean, yeah, they might have been acting out of anger, and acting relatively irrationally. People tend to do that, but again, that's to say that like the blanket statement of just like overall people who are yelling at people they disagree with are just trying to get the people they disagree with on their side. That's not always true, and that's not always the point. Like, so I
Well, I'm
think
just saying that Inside Edition interviewed like a protester, and they said
okay,
that.
so that's one particular protester. But again, that's like you can't blame all
Well,
of
the point of them going to the outdoor diners is to get them to march with them or put their fists up and show them solidarity or whatever it's called.
okay, yeah, and some of the diners might do that. I'm sure some of the diners did it. Like
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
I'm
some diners do, and the diners that don't, they do get harassed. So
right. So to an extent, yeah, and while that's not always great, I think if it's nonviolent harassment, it's not that big of an issue.
I don't
Like
know, but
there
people
are
are in
just
peace eating at a restaurant,
I
and
mean, yeah, no, it's not
thousands of people
it's
surround them.
it's not great to do that, I guess, but like that's a really flimsy reason to denounce Black Lives Matter because sometimes they get mad at people who disagree with them.
Okay,
Like,
well, I don't like how. Yeah, like I'll go to another point that I made like during my like intro or whatever, that they don't really address black on black crime or murder or whatever. They talk about only police brutality, and that's just a small fraction of
they
the.
definitely don't only talk about police brutality. And the reason that they focus on police brutality is because that's what gets people to come out and protest. BLM position on black crime. I'm sure that they've made a statement on this. But yeah, black on black crime is also a really big issue. Um,
I think if we're focusing on
yeah, so
Black Lives Mattering, I
the
think
first
it should be
article I
stopping
just
that
found
trend.
is Stop Accusing the Black Lives Matter movement of Ignoring So-Called Black on Black Crime. And um, yeah, so it's yeah, I'm not going to read this entire article right now, but here, let me see if there are any other articles. Black Lives Matter and Black on Black Crime. What does this say? Uh, Let me look.
The people who they idolize, though, like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and like other uh
Hmm.
people that they don't idolize anyone who was a victim of a crime, not by a police officer.
Well, yeah, because
At least I don't think.
black on black crime is definitely an issue, and it kills, more people die due to black on black crime, I guess, than police
Yeah.
brutality. But like, police killing a person is is just like a bigger story, and it's kind of
If it's
worse than a.
unjustifiable, like there's these situations where they're definitely justifiable. The other person has like a weapon or something, and it's in defense. And
Yeah, sure,
I
there are some instances of it, but like most
most
conservative.
instances, not just on black people, on white people as well, on any other race. But um, I was just about
Wait,
to
what
say
was that
something.
point? So you're saying that police like kill white people for no reason as often as black
Oh no no
people?
no! If they have a weapon, if it's
Oh,
not
okay. All
justifiable.
right. Yeah, no, there are situations where they have a weapon, but a lot of the problem is that conservative pundits will just like say no matter which death it is, like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, whoever else, they'll just say that they had a weapon or that the police were provoked, and they'll defend the police even when the circumstances are undeniable that the police acted, uh, beyond reason. What was that recent person who was in the car, and or he was outside of his car, and then he walked around to his car, and the police had him at gunpoint while he like slowly walked around to the other side of his car, and then he like started getting to his car, and they shot him because they thought he was reaching for a knife. But like the knife wasn't even found in his hand; it was found on like the other side of the car. So that's like part of the problem is then police later will say, "Oh look, we had to shoot him
Was it
because."
declared unjustifiable in court, or you don't
I
know?
don't remember. But
Okay. Well, that's why they go to court, because anytime a police shoots
the
someone
courts are
and kills
always
them,
on the side of the police, almost always at least. Because
maybe because it is self-defense.
no,
Because
in that situation, if you've
there's
seen the
other
video,
situations where
if
they
the
are.
police if the police had wanted to restrain that man in that particular instance, you can watch the video, and the man is walking around the car for like
I don't
five
know
to
the
ten
story. I'm
seconds.
just
The
going
police
off
could
of
have
like if
restrained him
in
during that
court
time.
if it's declared that it's justifiable or unjustifiable, and if the officers get charged. But do you
I
know the exact statistics of how many black people are murdered by cops in 2019, and of how many of those were declared unjustifiable in court?
um deaths, police related deaths in neighborhood economic and racial ethnic. Hold on. I Here, let me look at this source. I have a whole document of sources.
Okay. I didn't
This is
prepare.
for
I didn't prepare
2015 to
anything.
2016. Uh, More than 1,100 persons died in the U.S. in 2015 from injuries inflicted by law enforcement, and police-related mortality rates are disproportionately high among men and boys of color. So that's 1,100 people, and
That's not the
in
statistics I get from the FBI, but
this is AJPH or APH, American Public Health Association.
okay. I
The
can.
American the FBI doesn't always, by the way, classify like a police or a death at the hands of police the same way as other organizations do. But um, yeah, like for example, if they die in a hospital afterwards, some sources might say that that's like doesn't count as dying at the hands of police. But I know this source is saying died from injuries inflicted by law enforcement, so it's taking that into account. So if you're getting lower numbers, it might be for a reason like that, where they're not taking into
All
account
right.
hospital deaths. But like
Okay.
absolutely
So,
that should be counted.
do you believe that what should we call it? Like the Breonna Taylor case
Oh, the Breonna
should.
Taylor case was, yeah, no, that was definitely the police's fault. They had a no-knock warrant at first, but if you look, they didn't have a no-knock warrant afterwards. The judge changed it afterwards. He changed the order so that it wasn't a
Mhm.
no-knock warrant anymore. So they had to knock and announce themselves, and out of, I believe it was out of 9 witnesses, 8 of the witnesses said that they had not announced themselves as police. And they were plainclothes. They weren't dressed as police either. So it was literally just a bunch of people knocking and
Do you
then
think they
breaking down the door
deliberately
of the.
shot Breonna Taylor though, or was she just caught in crossfire?
I'm not sure that they intentionally shot Breonna Taylor, but they were shooting at her boyfriend, which is
Yeah,
ridiculous
because he
because
had a weapon drawn, right?
yeah. So what? Are you not so? This is what was happening from Breonna Taylor's boyfriend's perspective. He was in his home. Suddenly he hears a knock, and before he can answer it, his door is broken down by a bunch of men without in plainclothes. They just looked like a bunch of men. They didn't look like police, and they
Well,
had
there's a
never
difference
announced
between
themselves
charging
as
them for
police,
that and a difference.
and they had their guns out. What are you gonna do? No, you're gonna like so if you're like at all pro Second Amendment, and you believe that people should have the right to defend their property, then yeah, it's pretty clear that the Breonna Taylor case was absolutely the police's fault.
No, when I'm at that, I mean, there's a difference between charging them for like not going in when there's like not a warrant or whatever, and the difference between like like being charged for murder. That doesn't.
Oh,
That doesn't.
I mean, like, yeah, maybe they should only be charged for like manslaughter or murder in the third degree or something. Yeah, okay. If they weren't like intentionally trying to kill her, I guess you shouldn't charge them for murder in the first degree.
Manslaughter, I can get because it was like, I mean, it was
But he
unintentional.
didn't even get charged for manslaughter. He didn't get charged for jack shit. Like,
Well, I can get if they tried to charge him for manslaughter,
right.
but you
And
don't try to charge him them or not him. I don't
and
even know
that's
what
one of
the
the other
officer.
problems is because the police and the courts and the prosecutors are all working together. One of the methods that they'll do a lot of the times is the prosecutors of the police will only charge them with like the highest possible um, charge. So they'll say like we're charging them with murder in the first degree. And in the US court system, you are allowed to charge them with murder in the first degree, murder in the second degree, murder in the third, and manslaughter. You're allowed to charge them for all four and then just see which one sticks. That's like a
Hold
thing
on,
you're
my mom
legally
broke
allowed to
glass.
do.
My
But they
mom broke glass in the kitchen. I need to help her figure it out. 1 second.
oh, okay, that's
If you
fine.
could pause, that's fine. Okay.
All right, I'll entertain my my live stream audience in the meantime. Hey, what's up, guys? How many people are watching me right now? 14, hell yeah, or 17? I don't even know. It's one of the two. Uh, yeah, comment, subscribe, or something. Anyway, here, let me take a look at the chat. I haven't looked in a while. Da 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 da. Pie face seed, but the vast majority of police officers don't shoot black people. Uh,
I'm back. She didn't
oh,
name me.
okay, sweet. Um, all right, let me try to remember what my point was.
Yeah. We're talking about like being charged for murder. I don't know.
Right, yeah. So prosecutors are allowed to charge you for like multiple things and see which one sticks. But when they're prosecuting police, a lot of the time, you know, they'll get a little bribe under the table and they'll say just charge them with the highest one and they'll purposefully overcharge the person so that the
It's more
public
like it
is
makes it look more serious. Yeah.
exactly, the public is like, "Hey, at least they're getting charged," but then the charge doesn't stick because it's an overcharge. That's like an intentional thing that absolutely happens. And it happened in the Breonna Taylor case.
The chat is saying they're ignoring you. You're ignoring them.
Um, I'm not entertaining. Well, the problem is for my chat, people watching the live stream, is that there's like a 10 to 20 second delay. So you only see what I'm doing like 10 to 20 seconds later, and that's yeah, which isn't great. I'm not sure why there's that much of a delay. I
Well,
feel like there
yeah.
shouldn't be.
Kyle Rittenhouse, he's that 17-year-old guy, right?
Hmm? Yeah,
That
Kyle
17-year-old.
Rittenhouse. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your
That
opinion on that? That's a good question, Beamer.
that was the dude who went across state lines with like an assault rifle and like shot black protesters or something, right?
Well, no, he shot. I don't know. It wasn't all. I don't know. He shot and killed a white person because they were charging at him, even when he had his gun pointed at them because they were being very aggressive, and they still ran towards him. So he shot.
Okay. I honestly
And by
don't.
the way, he was like, I forget the word for it, but he got released. Like he was declared not guilty. So
Okay. Well, I don't know enough about that case to speak. I mean, I can look into it, but I feel like that would be a little bit boring. Uh,
yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
but yeah, I mean, just the fact he did travel across state lines with like an assault rifle, right? That is a fact, correct?
Well, that doesn't mean anything. You could travel anywhere with a. unless it's illegal. Was it legal
Okay,
for him to have a gun?
I'm not saying that he broke the law by doing that.
Okay.
But okay, that's kind of fucking ridiculous. Like to 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 travel across state lines purposefully to
Do you, I
instigate
don't,
violence. He was looking for violence if he was doing that. You know, like if he were defending his own community, I would still say he's a dumbass
I
and
don't
he
even
should
know
leave
if he
it to
did
the
travel across
police.
state lines, but I know he had work that day, and then someone called him, "Hey, do you want to come protest with us or like counter protest?" I don't
Hmm.
know why he brought his gun, but he had his gun, and people were charging towards him, so he had the right to shoot back.
Yeah, so I definitely believe, I'm pro Second Amendment, to an extent. We can talk about that later actually if you'd like to, because that's
Well,
another
we can
interesting
talk
debate.
about it now. I mean, you could close this, whatever, but then we
Okay.
could talk.
But yeah, just quickly to wrap up the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. Even if he wasn't doing anything illegal, that's kind of ridiculous to go across state lines with an assault rifle to just walk around counter
Well, you're
protesting,
attacking him.
looking
You're
for
not like
violence.
he's not looking for violence. People were charging towards him.
He was looking for violence. If he did all of that, he went with the intention to, at the very least, intimidate protesters. At the very least. And it looked
So,
you
are we talking about him, or are we talking about like him? Should have been charged for
Oh,
like
I
you
don't
think?
I don't know enough about him to say if he should be charged or
Okay.
not. But just from those details that I do know, like he was no angel, and defending him is kind of ridiculous. And there was a
Well,
lot of right.
defending him because people are like slandering him for murdering them, but it was in self-defense. Yes, I would defend him for that because it was self-defense.
Okay, fair
People
enough. But
were
a lot of
charging
right-wing
towards him and
media was
throwing things
like
at him
a lot
and
of right-wing
trying to
media though
stab
was
him.
like hailing him as a hero. And there's a difference between defending him as like,
I don't know about a hero. I just think like um
okay, well he definitely was not a
ensuring that he
hero.
did nothing wrong by shooting in self-defense is what they're trying to get across.
All right,
I
sure.
don't think they
And
declared him a hero. If they did, you can show me.
oh, yeah, like I'm pretty sure I saw like a Fox thing where it's like Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero. Um, or it was like one of the dudes from Fox or something.
Not a hero for anything. For
Kyle Rittenhouse is an American
but just so
hero.
you know, during the night he's a certified not certified. He works for EMT. He was literally helping out a protester from the other side who
Kyle
got
Rittenhouse
injured
was?
by. Yes, he was helping out everyone.
If
Also,
that's
people
true,
on.
then that's pretty cool, I guess. Um, I don't
There's
know if it is
video
true.
evidence of him helping out a protester from the other side.
All right, fair enough. I'll have to look into that later. But yeah, I don't know. You're not watching my stream now, are you?
I
Yeah,
can see.
it's
Yeah,
fine
I'm
if you're.
looking at it now.
Oh, okay, yeah. I pulled up like a source that's calling Kyle Rittenhouse an American hero because you asked me to.
Uh,
Um, so
does it
there,
say hero word for word?
yeah, it says word for word the title. Kyle Rittenhouse is an American hero in all caps. Finally, someone stands up to BLM
Well,
terror
he's
and
not a
shoots back
hero.
in
That's a
self-defense.
misword. He is someone who protected himself. He
Hmm.
shouldn't be a hero. Like,
The
he
American
shouldn't be a
Citadel
hero.
also says it. Kyle Rittenhouse, hero. And let's see. And this one's about not making him a hero. But yeah, so there's definitely some right wing media that's like literally calling him a hero for what he did, which is ridiculous. I
What
don't
does it
know if he
say
broke
by
the law.
Fox or no?
But
I
yeah.
don't.
Okay, and in terms of guns, because I think that's a pretty smooth transition from Kyle Rittenhouse.